Wasabi guys! Alright, hello everyone, welcome back to another Commander Deck Tech video. We have another new Commander option from Commander 2021. This is the tie-in with the Strixhaven expansion. So you pretty much have characters from the same plane. It's kind of like with last year's Commander 2020, where all of those creatures, all of those commanders, and all the cards there had something to do with Ikoria. So here we have Veyran, Voice of Duality. She is a 3-mana, blue-red, 2/2 legendary creature, a Freet Wizard. With Magecraft, whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, Veyran will get +1/+1 until end of turn, so it's very similar to Prowess. If you casting or copying an instant or sorcery spell causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time, so yes, this is very close to Panharmonicon for Spellslinger decks. However, it does have to focus on the permanents that trigger when you cast instants and sorceries. That being said, there are a ton of ways that this can be abused, and as you can see here, this initial price tag here of $24.99 means that Veyran's probably going to be a highly sought after commander option. I think out of the commander options that we've seen, this might be the most powerful. So I have different categories here. I'm going to try to go through these a little bit quicker than I normally do it, just to get the video time down a bit. First up here we have Electrostatic Field. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, so if you get double triggers, that's double the damage, so every spell will get you 2 damage. Firebrand Archer, pretty much the same thing but for non-creature spells, so there's a lot more that you can deal damage with. And then you have Thermo Alchemist. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you untap them, and you can tap to deal 1 damage to each opponent. And this card I haven't played yet in a deck, but I've always wanted to. Aria of Flame. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent gains 10 life, but whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you put a verse counter on it, and then it deals damage equal to the number of verse counters on it to target player or planeswalker. So that 10 life is kind of a drag. You don't want to have to give any opponents that much life, but this is basically like a Sphinx Bone Wand. You're just going to continue to deal more damage, and we have a ton of instants and sorceries. And this gets double triggers, so you get twice the verse counters for each instant or sorcery. So it's going to add up real quickly. We have Gutter Snipe to deal 2 damage to each opponent whenever we cast an instant or sorcery. So that's going to be 4. That's insane. We have Ralstorm Conduit. Whenever we cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, he's going to deal 1 damage to target opponent or planeswalker, so that's pretty cool. Great abilities, the -2 when you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, you copy it. So very good planeswalker for this kind of deck. We have some copy cards. We have Narset's Reversal. Can kind of act as a counter spell, but it's really just in here to be like a blue Reverberate. That will also bounce a spell back to our hand, so we get a couple uses out of the same spell if we want it. We have Bonus Round. Until end of turn, whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, that player copies it, and they choose new targets for the copies. So this is a pretty chaotic card. We have Twinning Staff. If we would copy a spell 1 or more times, we instead copy it that many times plus an additional time. And we also have that activated ability where we can pay 7 and tap it to copy 1, which is very inefficient, but if we're desperate, we got it there. We have Primal Amulet, makes our instants and sorceries cost 1 less, and whenever we cast an instant or sorcery, we put a charge counter on it, which means that it'll trigger twice because of our commander, and if you're able to transform it, you get Primal Wellspring, which is a good land. It taps for mana, you use that mana for an instant or sorcery, and then you copy that instant or sorcery. We have the new card Wandering Archaic. Whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, they may pay 2 mana. If they don't, you get to copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So brilliant card. I think it belongs in so many decks, especially if you can copy spells. We have Thousand Year Storm, probably one of the better cards in the whole deck. If you have a ton of cantrips, if you can keep your turn going, this could potentially just win you the game. And then we have our counter spells, not too many. This isn't going to be a super competitive deck, but we have some good ones here. We have Swan Song, Arcane Denial to get a little bit of card draw, the counterspell, we have Negate, and then we have Counterflux, so can't be countered by spells or abilities, an uncounterable counterspell. Then we have some draw spells in here. Got a whole bunch, because that's what we want to do. If this is a Spellslinger deck, you want cantrips, you want to replace the cards in your hand. That way you can cast more spells. We have Brainstorm, we have Faithless Looting, we have Opt, we have Ponder, Preordain, Serum Visions, then we have Impulse. It's not technically card draw, but in a very similar way, it's going to act as a cantrip. And then we have Frantic Search to draw 2, discard 2, and then untap up to 3 lands. Great card if you want to keep your turn going. And then we have Jory and Ruin Diver. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, you get to draw a card. This will also trigger because its trigger on cast doesn't matter if your commander says, well, instants or sorceries. As long as it's an instant or sorcery that's triggering this ability, you will then get to draw twice. We have Wheel of Misfortune. Great card for card draw. Also a little bit more chaotic, can also deal damage. We have Windfall. We have Archmage Emeritus. So whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, you get to draw a card. Brilliant card to trigger twice. Then we have Dig Through Time. Again, not really card draw, but in a lot of ways, you're just going to use it to dig through your deck and get some of the cards that you need. We have Treasure Cruise. Very good in a Spellslinger deck. A ton of cards are going to end up in your graveyard, so you get to delve and draw 3. We have some graveyard synergies in here. We have Mission Briefing, just so we can get an instant or sorcery card back from our graveyard. Get to cast it again. We have Mizzix's Mastery, so we can overload it and pretty much exile and play any instant or sorcery card in our graveyard. And then we have Past in Flames. Great with flashback, so even if it's in the graveyard, you get to cast it again. And then each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback. We have your typical mana fixing lands, nothing super special, nothing to really talk about other than that. We do have some utility in here, Mystic Sanctuary. You put an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard on top of your library, and we have Reliquary Tower, so we don't have to discard. But the rest here is pretty much just blue and red mana fixing. So then we have some mana rocks in here. We have mana producers in general. We have Soul Ring, Wayfarer's Bauble to get us a land early on, Arcane Signet, Felwar Stone, Izzet Signet, Talisman of Creativity, and then we have Birgi, God of Storytelling. She is fantastic for any kind of Spellslinger deck now, especially this one, because that trigger where you get to add a red mana whenever you cast a spell, that's going to trigger twice whenever you cast an instant or sorcery with our commander out there as well. So you just get more and more red mana. You get to use that red mana till the end of your turn. Really sweet card. Jessica's Will. So we add a red mana for each card in target opponent's hand, and then we also get to exile the top 3 cards of our library and then play them until end of turn. We have Stormkiln Artist. This card's amazing too. Whenever we cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, we create a treasure token. So that's also when we copy spells, we get treasure tokens. That's crazy. And then for removal, we have Vandal Blast, just to get rid of artifact decks. We have Cyclonic Rift, Reality Shift, Chaos Warp, and Blasphemous Act. Don't want to have too much removal in here. We do actually want to focus on cantrips and being able to play easier spells, but it's always necessary to have some removal in here. And then we have our trigger cards in here, just cards that they kind of do other things outside of burn. They give us creature tokens, card draw even, or just miscellaneous things. Talrand will give us a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying each time we cast one. And Zaphi is a new one, so Zaphi Thunder Conductor. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, you get to scry one. If that spell's mana value is 5 or greater, you get a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. And if that spell's mana value is 10 or greater, Zaphi deals 10 damage to each opponent chosen at random, so mana value is pretty good if you can get your X-costed spells up there, because you will trigger all of those abilities twice. And then we have Metallurgic Summonings. Whenever you cast one, you create an XX colorless construct creature token, where X is its mana value, and then you can pay 5 mana, exile it, and then return all instants and sorcery cards from your graveyard to your hand. And then we have Niv Mizzet Perun. Whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, you draw a card. Whenever you draw a card, deals 1 damage to any target. We have Shark Typhoon. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you create an XX blue shark creature token with flying. Gets out of hand pretty quickly. We have some tutors in here. We have Mystical Tutor and Fervent Mastery. Fervent Mastery is great because it's kind of like Gamble times 3. So you search for 3 cards and then you randomly discard 3 cards. Brilliant card. And to talk about our win cons, we do have some pretty good ones. I wanted to focus on instants and sorceries, so I chose a way to cast instants and sorceries infinitely so that you'll be able to then trigger other things. We also have Aetherflux Reservoir, so in addition to our burn creatures, the ones that deal damage every time we cast an instant or sorcery, we have a way to win the game here. But we have Reiterate and Mana Geyser, or Reiterate and Turnabout. So Reiterate's going to be on the stack with both of those spells, and you're just going to get more mana. You're going to keep returning your Reiterate to your hand, and then you keep putting it on the stack, and then you end up with pretty much infinite mana. Turnabout is technically better because you can get blue mana, but either of these I think they're going to help us win the game if it just allows us to cast an infinite number of instants and sorceries. And then we have our X-costed spells to finish off the deck, so these are pretty cool here. We have Culmination of Studies. Talked about this card in my top 10 video. You exile the top X cards of your library. For each land card exiled this way, you create a treasure. For each blue card, you draw a card, and for each red card exiled, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, so you get a little bit of everything there. I think it's just great. It's random enough, it's unique enough. It could help you keep your turn going. With infinite mana, it could also help you win. We have Epic Experiment, just so you can get to your instants and sorceries, and you can dump a ton of mana into this and also likely win. We have Finale of Revelation. If X is 10 or more, you then draw those cards, you untap up to 5 lands. You have no maximum hand size, just a great card to dump a ton of mana into. So anyway, everyone, let me know what you think about Veyran, Voice of Duality. I think this is a pretty sweet commander option. Overall, I wasn't super impressed by looking at all the commander options from Commander 2021. This one definitely stands out. I think Veyran's probably the most powerful. So let me know what you think about this. I will have it linked in the description below. Go check it out here on Moxfield. Subscribe if you have not already. Like, comment, share, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Void here signing off. See you all next time.